if it isn't the best community on the YouTube platform. The Lock Nation, how are you? Are you good? I'm so glad to be here with you again for another great video. Now, as you probably saw from the video title, these are stories from a photographer's point of view, good and horror. Now, as a photographer, there's a lot that I've experienced. You know, I've had good stories, I've had bad stories. And so we're going to start out with the bad, and then we'll end with the good. So the worst the worst experience I've ever had as a photographer using this guy right here was working with a family when I was more experienced. Now, this family had seen, the wife of the family had seen a promotion that I had posted on Facebook and like all over Facebook, you know, so on the various classified ads, saying that, like, you know, this session for this much, this session for this much. And so she had messaged me saying like, hey, I'm interested in this. So we came to an agreement and like a time, a place, a day, and all this. And so when her husband and their youngest son arrived, and then her other son, who didn't live with them, and his girlfriend arrived separately. Now, I was really happy to meet them. I was very polite. And I was like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm the photographer. You know, I introduced myself, and she introduced her kids and her husband. You know, we started having some small talk, and then so we started taking the photos. And now, when I took these photos, it was like in the fall. So it was in a perfect time of year to take some family portraits, to really get out those, you know, for those Christmas cards, those New Year's cards, whatever people wanted to use. And so that's why I was doing this promotion, because I wanted to help bring in some extra money for Christmas. Now, when I first started taking these shots of these people, the oldest son and his girlfriend were both very cooperative. You know, I did a couple shots with them, and I did some individuals with them, and I did some couple photos with the mom and dad, and I started to try to do some photos for the son, and he wasn't being very cooperative. His parents over me and his older brother kept saying like, you gotta smile, and I was even saying like, smile, like you gotta smile, like I was thinking in my mind like, your parents are paying for this, like you gotta smile, you know, show those pearly whites. And this kid would not smile, and if he smiled, it was like a blank, it was a half smile. I don't want to swear, because that's just, I try not to swear. It was that kind of a smile. You know what I'm saying, a half smile. And so it came to the point where, like, when they were getting the whole family shots, I was taking them all around this park over in Fruit Heights, Utah. And they, so like, you know, this is a good spot right here, this is a good spot right here. And so we got shots in all those areas. Now, as I was mentioning, the younger son was being completely uncooperative. He did not want to cooperate for this at all. He didn't even seem like he wanted to be there. He probably wanted to be at home playing like video games or something. Now, one thing that I need to remind you of is that this is the same kid that was giving these blanks. He was giving these like half smiles. You know what I'm talking about. But there's one other detail I haven't mentioned yet. He insisted on having his iPhone in his front pocket. He was wearing a button-up plaid shirt, and he insisted on having that in his front pocket. Now, photographers, come in real close. I'm talking to you right now. You know as well as I know that we are good at what we do, but we are not miracle workers. We do have our limitations of like what we can do. Now, as an experienced photographer, I did the very best I could with this, but there's only so much that you can do without, with trying to hide a phone bulge in the front pocket of a shirt. This kid's parents kept trying to take away his phone, but he was insistent on having that phone right there in his front pocket, and I did the very best I could. Now, when I went back through and I was editing these shots, because they were they got the promo where like if you did so much time with me, you'd get like 11 by 17 free shot from a session. I was going through and I was trying to keep an eye out for a good shot that maybe would be a good free print for them. Again, here comes the problem. Do you remember how the kid was not smiling? This kid looked like he had just been arrested in more than half of these shots. He was giving a mugshot like he would not smile. He was being too overly smile. He was like being too overbearing in his smiles. Like he was like kind of forcing it. His parents were getting frustrated at this point. Now I want to go back to the photo session real quick of like where I was taking this family's photos, because the husband and wife were being very cooperative. The older son and his girlfriend were being very cooperative. But again, this kid, who was probably 13 or 14, refused to be cooperative. He did not want to edit. He did not want to smile at all. He didn't even really want to be there. And so at the very end of the photo session, I was like, I was trying to work out the payment arrangements with him. Like, do you want to pay now or do you want to pay when you get the photos? And she's like, oh, we can pay now. And so she looks to her husband. Her husband's like, how much do I owe you? And I'm like, I think I said it was something like $100 or $150. And he was like all mad that I was charging that. Now, if you know anything about photography and about professional photographers, that's actually pretty cheap when it comes to when it comes to a photo session. $100 to $150 for a photo session, that's really not that expensive. Most photographers will end up charging like between $200 and $300, maybe even $400, if that, for like that. And then even if they may even tack on other fees if the individuals in the family or individuals that they're taking portraits of are being very uncooperative. So $100 to $150 is not that much money. So he reluctantly gave me the money. He's like, here. He's like, good. He's like, good heavens. And he's just like, gives me this money, like all mad. And so I was like, it'll take me this long to get them edited, and I'll email them to you, and then I'll meet up with you for the free print. And they're like, okay, great. And so during this time, like I started editing. I went home. I uploaded the photos on my MacBook. I started to edit on them. And then, like about a week later, my dog had an emergency. He had skinned up his paw, and I had to take him to the ER. And that was like occupying my time. This is my dog. Like I guess you could say my kid in a sense. And so I was pushing everything else off to the side because this was my priority. And so this wife of this family, she's like, hey, how are the photos coming? And at first she's like being very cooperative, like, oh no, yeah, no worries, just get them to me when you can. And then it got to the point, she's like, all right, where's my photos? Like, she's like, I've been super patient with you, like, where's my photos? Like, she's basically yelling at me at this point, like over Facebook. And I proceeded to tell her, like, my dog had an emergency, I had to take him to the ER. She had no compassion whatsoever. She was like, I want my photos. And so at this point I was like, this lady's not going to relent. I'm just going to go home. I'm going to edit all of her photos. I'm going to email them to her, get her, and then I'm going to show her the few options that I could find that were halfway decent for the free print. Get that print submitted, pick up the print, and just go meet them and just be done with the client. And so thankfully, I was able to get it done pretty. I don't want to say what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I don't want to say I have it. I really put a lot of time in these shots when I edited them. Now, when I met with this lady, I met her in a Walmart parking lot, which was also super sketch. Don't do that. Like, if you're a photographer, don't meet people in like a grocery store parking lot. That's super sketch. It's super sketch. Don't do that. So anyway, after I was done with this experience with them, I remember driving home, and I actually had a family member in the car with me, and I told that family member, I'm like, I will never do business with this family ever again because they were so uncooperative. Now we're gonna go from really bad to really good. So the second really bad horror story that I have for you guys that comes from my experiences comes from the fact that it was the very first photography photo shoot that I ever did with this guy right here. Now, this was a girl that was in my singles congregation in the area. She had saw my post. She had seen my post on Facebook, and she was just like, you can take my photos anytime you want. Now, if a girl says these kind of things to you, and she also did other things to kind of show that she was interested in me, guys, do not ignore this. This isn't a dating video, but if a girl shows these kind of interests, take her up. Take advantage of this. Like, don't ask her out is what I'm saying. But anyway, that's besides the point. So I went and picked her up at her house. Her name was Allie. She was a really cute girl. And she was very cooperative with the photo shoots. I made her laugh a lot. In the photo session was great. I had a fun time with her, but the photos themselves were blurry and washed out. I did not know the first thing about ISO. I did not know the first thing about white balance or shutter speed. All of these things. I did not know the first thing about this, and I was also doing it on the AV mode, which is something you don't do. You don't do this on. You don't take photos on an AV mode, especially if it's a photo shoot. You do it on manual. And I was being a total noob, total greenie about this, but so yeah, I remember I sent the photos to my mentor, and they're like, these are okay, like, but they're kind of blurry, they're kind of washed out. I was like, but it was good for your first photo session. That was really bad on my part, and that to me was really bad because I didn't know what the flip I was doing. Now we're going to start getting into the better ones, but this one's is kind of like in between good and bad. So during this time when I was offering those free photo sessions at the very beginning of my photography journey, I had reached out to an old high school buddy of mine. His name was Raj. Raj, if you're watching this, you're awesome. But and I actually even showed you guys some photos in some of these photos in one of the videos I did, one of the early on videos I did. I'll put an iCard somewhere up there so you guys can see that after this video, of course. But when I messaged him about it. I'm like, I can give you some free photos, and he just thought about it for a few days, and he got back to me. He's like, bro, I've been thinking about it. He's like, I feel like that I want to do this. I feel like it would really make me feel good about my life. And so I met up with him down at the bird refuge that we did the Chasing Light episode 1 at. And honestly, like, we had a great time. We talked about old stories from like high school and everything. We talked about girls that we were interested in at the time. All that kind of stuff that guys talk about, And I remember I went home and I edited these shots, and at the time I'm like, these are looking really great. Like, I really like these shots. And well, I emailed them to him, and he's like, dude, those look sick. Like, they look awesome. And so he started posting them, and then the negative comments started coming. People were saying that his face was too dark, you couldn't see his face. And I'm sitting there going through these shots, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're right. These are really bad. And so I, at this point, felt really bad. And at this point in the session, like, I had gone, actually later on, a few like months down the road, I went back and I re-edited them and brought them into Photoshop and really like kind of brightened them up and made them look better. I emailed them, I'm like, hey man, like, here's some better shots, use these instead, and I hope you enjoy them. And so I'm pretty sure he was grateful to have those. But so that was pretty bad. Now this other one is still in the same kind of category, good, but not so good, but not so bad. There was a person that had seen my post in a singles congregation Facebook group that I was in, and she was like, oh, my family was like, I want to schedule this because I want to get some more family photos with my family. Now at this point, granted, I didn't really know what I was doing when it came to editing. Things were being oversaturated. Things were just going everywhere. Now this girl, her name was Bailey. Bailey, if you're watching this, I hope you will sometime in the future give me another chance, because now I'm a professional. At the time I was a noob, I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, so Bailey and her family met me up in Kaysville, Utah, and we went up to this area where it was kind of like a little hike. It's kind of close to Adams Canyon in Kaysville, Utah, if you know where that is. And so at this point, I thought I was doing really good. I was doing all these kind of things, do the embarrassing shot, do the sibling shot, all those kind of things that photographers tell you to do. Now the editing process was bad. I did not know what I was doing. I was like I said, all my my color schemes were off. I didn't know what I was doing. And so again, like Raj's experience, I went back and I edited. I went back through like a year and a half later, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I gotta fix these. And so I fixed a lot of them and sent them to Bailey, and I was like, here I edited some more shots. Hope you enjoyed them. Have a good night. So let's get it on to the good ones. So this is a really good one that came from when I was in the noob phase of my photography. There again, I was doing these free photo sessions, and this comes from that same video that I was talking about where I showed you some of these photos. This family had, well, the wife of this family, she had contacted me and she said, I saw your posts on this one Facebook group. I really would like to get this. You know, my daughter passed away a couple of years ago from a car accident. And so I was more than happy to help them. And those photos turned out phenomenal. Like, you know, the family is cooperative. And fun fact, right afterwards, one of her sons, who was dating a girl, actually ended up proposing to that girl that same night. So, Sonia, if you're watching this, man, that's awesome. I'm happy for you that you found that he was able to bring that addition into your family. But this photo, like, my settings were just right. Now, as a noob photographer, that's phenomenal to me. Like, I love the fact that everything turned out right. I'll even put a picture of it like right up here. There was a bridge shot that I really liked. It's like right up here, and this shot just turned out amazing. You know, the lighting was perfect. Everyone was smiling. The colors they were all wearing were perfect. Everyone it was just perfect. And so, kind of going on with that, here's another great story for you from my time as a photographer, my journey as a photographer. At this point, when I did this photo session, I was charging people for their photos, for their photo shoots, I should say. And this lady, her name was Cheryl. She had reached out to me. She's like, "Hey," she's like, "I saw your ad. I would like to, you know, take you up on this opportunity." And I was like, "Sure, yeah, this is great. Like, yeah, we'll set up a time and let me know." And so she set up a time with all of her kids, because all of her kids were married at that point and had kids of their own. We all know how that is when we have extended family that has to make time, schedule it. We all know how it is, right? Right? And so at this point, I met them over in Fruit Heights, Utah, where I have done a lot of different photo sessions, and this family was phenomenal. They were very cooperative for the most part. You know, I started doing this pose with the majestic shot where they're all just kind of looking out, you know, with their arm around it. The husband has the arm around the wife and all this, and it was like right next to a creek or a crick if you're in Utah. That's how we say it here in Utah, crick. And so, you know, I had a great time with them, and they were even in the process of adopting a few kids from another country, which were amazing. I loved it. Now, the only sidebar I want to say about this is that one of the grandkids, at first she was really cold. She was just sitting there just cold. And so we're all just like, come on, you got to smile. You got to smile. And so for the first little bit, like, she just wasn't smiling. But then finally she came out of her own, and she started being the star of the show. She was smiling. She was doing all sorts of funny faces. I even sent a few shots to her grandma, Cheryl, who was the one that organized the whole thing. She's like, she's such a little twerp. She does this all the time. But with that being said, guys, if you got value out of this, make sure you go check out this video right here where I take you along in the first episode of Chasing Light. And coming soon, we're going to be doing episode 2. And also coming soon, we are going to be doing the editing process of those Chasing Light pictures from that first episode. But I will see you over there at that first episode of Chasing Light.